Okay, the next video is 2 days of riding. So what I'm doing is getting ready. I'm going to get this bike prepped, and the plan is a little bit hit and miss at the minute, because I did a ride the other day, 102 miles, as I mentioned. I have a sneaking feeling I may have developed shingles. I've got not a rash, I just feel sore around my waist. So I'm just waiting to see how it's going. I might see a doctor Monday. I'll give him a ring and see if I can find out if it is or not, because it can be quite serious or it can be very minor. But I want to go riding on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I don't know. I feel all right in myself. I've just got this sore strip on my hips and across my back. It's just sore. I don't quite know what it is. But if you look it up, it says shingles. And I haven't had a shingles jab. I was supposed to be having one soon, but I haven't had one yet. So fingers crossed it's nothing like that. I don't know what else it could be, but I've got no rash. I say I feel all right. Anyway, this video is about prepping for 2 days of bike packing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this, going to go through the kit that I'm going to take with me just for 2 days, or for one night out, basically, just to show you what I take with me. I may have done this before, but I thought I'd do it as a prep video, preparing for a ride. I did it for the last one. I did a little pre-ride video for the 102 mile, and people seem to like that one. So I'm going to do it again, and then when I do the ride, I shall film it, and then afterwards I'll do how it went. So I am, because the last video I did say I checked my bike over. What I didn't actually do was grease the bearings. Now I'm going to grease the bearings in both my front hub. Actually, it was a different, no, what's this bike? So I got too many bikes. So I'm going to grease the wheel bearings, front and back. I'm going to check other stuff. I don't think there's awful much to check, but then I'm just going to get my kit ready, what I'm going to take with me. Okay, right, keep watching. Let's pop the wheels out. Oh, you may have noticed I've washed it. I was going to go through washing a bike, or I was going to go through how I wash a bike and how thorough I am and what I do. I'll touch on it now. Right, so the only thing I use, this bike was plastered. So what I do, when the bike, it was sat for a day and it all got dry and all the rest of it. So I got it out, and what I did was I got a hose, and all I use on the hose, on the end of the hose, is an attachment to give it, where is it? All I use is that. I don't use a jet wash. I've got a jet wash, but I don't use it on the bike. So I use this, which you can adjust on a normal hose. So then what I do is I'll wet the bike from end to end, leave it for a while to soak. Then once the mud is soaked in and got wet, I then wash it again with a hose pipe with the jet of that little nozzle, enough to wash the worst of it off. And then all I do, I don't use any cleaners or anything like that. I just get a brush like this, and I go around everything, and I rub it over, and then I swill it off again, and that's it. That's as far as I go, because what I don't want to do is I don't care whether there's little bits of mud or you know, it looks dirty in places. It's irrelevant, because this is going to get muddy again in a minute. So you know, yes, there's a bit of thing around there, but I give it a wash over, make sure everything, all these vital bits are free of mud. Check everything. The chain has got a little bit of rust on there, look. But that doesn't matter, because, as I've said over the last, my chains go for thousands of miles, because the pin, the bit inside this roller, in there's a pin, there's a roller around it. Now, so long as there's lube in there, this chain won't wear out. This rust will just wipe off, look, see? So when I put some squirt lube on this again in a minute, and it just tops up and make sure there's lubrication in that roller, in that pin. And so long as you do that, your chain will go on and on and on and on. This rust will just go in a minute when I put some lube on, and obviously as soon as you start pedaling. But it's not damaging the chain. That bit of yellow rust is not damaging the chain. It's just where I left it after I washed it. I had been out and done 100 odd miles in the muck, and I can just feel a little bit of wax still on it actually, but it's fine. So that's all I do. I've done that for years now on my chains. I don't clean them with anything. I never degrease them. You don't want to get that wax out of that roller in there. You just want to keep topping it up, make sure it's still there, because that's the friction part of the chain. That's the bit that wears. The pin and the roller is what wears and then stretches your chain. These plates don't stretch. It's the pins inside. I also make sure that, you know, this is all cleaned off. I will run through, as I'm doing this mini service, I will check that the bearings and the chocky wheels are clean, are spinning freely. I noticed with SRAM, this is an XTR, most Shimano jockey wheels last a lot longer than SRAM. SRAM seems to just seize up after quite a short period. Well, that's my experience anyway. I'm going to take the back wheel out and check the bearings. I should check the brake pads, front and back. I think I've got sintered pads in, but I will check them. So they're the bits that you need to check. Your wheel bearings, obviously your bottom bracket bearings, your rear hubs, and your jockey wheels. All the things that spin, it's best to keep an eye on those and make sure they are, there's no play or anything like in there. Headset bearings aren't quite so important. The bottom one is the one that usually wears first. I don't tend to touch that very much because it doesn't really get that much clack around it. It gets a little bit here, but I've got a mud guard on, so that helps. So they're your main parts of your bike, because obviously you've submerged the bike. Your bottom bracket's in the water, your pedals will be in, but these are XTR pedals, they've gone for years. Never touched those. But all these other bits will obviously get submerged. So it's worth I go every 4 to 6 weeks of constant riding. I'll take these bits out and I'll just repack the grease in the hubs. I'll check all this just to make sure everything keeps going. And normally I haven't changed the wheel bearing yet in any of these hubs. None of my hubs, these are the old orange ones which have been going for yonks. I've never had a new bearing, neither of them. In fact, I've never changed a wheel bearing since in 6 years. They're the same wheels, I've just swapped them. I've got 2 bikes and I swap the wheels around. Yeah, and they just keep going. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll just pop the wheels out and I will show you what I do to pack the bearings. That's the front one out. Just turn the clutch off, put your chain, your gears in on the smallest cog. Just means you can get the wheel in and out easier. You probably know all this stuff, I don't need to tell you. I've got a habit of explaining every little thing as if no one knows a thing about anything. But I'm pretty sure you all know how to take a wheel in and out of a bike. Let's put that out. Okay. The other thing I will do is just give the wheels a bit of a shake. Yeah, there's some sealant in there, just to make sure there's sealant in each wheel. Yeah, there's some in there as well. So that's good. I just checked that there's tyre sealant in there. Right, let's get on to the bearings. Just pop the cassette off. This is a Gerbrek cassette. They're made in Poland. They've just got an aluminium. The last sprocket's aluminium, the rest of it's machined out of steel in one piece. So they're very hard wearing and super light. They're not cheap. You can find them around if you look for Gerbrek. There are some UK suppliers. I used to supply them, but I sort of don't really wear anything out, and I'm sort of stepping back a little bit from supplying bike bits. I've got a shop. The shop does a lot of that stuff. So, right, I've always run XD Freer bodies, SRAM XD Freer hub bodies, because they are the simplest. They've got no splines. They seem to work fine. So I'm just going to pop the end cap off and then pull the Freer body off. I tend to use a vice, because then you can just give it a little wiggle and the end cap will pop off. Just gently, just do that, and off it comes. Don't lose that. Then I clean round the freer body when I can find a rag. Never put any degreaser on anything. You don't need to degrease anything at all. It's a bit of a myth. I don't think I've ever degreased a bike in years now. The only time you need to degrease chains and cassettes is when you use oil, which I never do. So just pop this off. I shall give this a bit of a clean. God, it looks quite good actually. Make sure all the springs are in place, not worn out. The pawls are all there. Bearings are smooth as smooth. Front and back. Okay. And then the bearing I want to get to is the one in there, because that's the one that wears quickest. So what I tend to do is get a... I should just give that a bit of a wipe out first. Get the worst of the grease out. Now there'll be a washer in here. There's a washer between the freer body and the bearing. It's to separate the bearing from the freer body, separate the bearing on the freer body from the bearing in the hub. Otherwise, if the two rub together, it doesn't work properly. So you want to make sure that that washer's there. I tend to use a magnet. I've got a little magnet. These picks have got magnets on. And you just pick the, there he is. And it'll pull off the washer. Don't lose it, and for goodness sake, I tend to put it on the freer body like that, leave it on there so I don't lose it, because if you don't put that back in, when you tighten everything up, it'll jam up. You'll have no free wheel, won't work. It's a bit of a sign. If you ever put your wheel back together and it's not freewheeling, that's what it is, you've left the washer out. So get the worst of this out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop off the bearing cover. If I show you, all I do, if you can see this, just bear with me a sec. So I get a Stanley knife, very, very gently pop up the cover. There we go. So you don't replace the bearing, you don't do anything. All you're doing is you're repacking. Now a lot of roadies and a lot of mechanics will say this is a stupid thing to do, because all you're doing is you're upping the resistance, the drag in the bearing. But we're not racing. What we want to do is to avoid having to take bearings out. Now there's still grease in there, because I've actually done this before, and that grease in there is red. So I may have done this not so long ago. So I'm going to put a little bit more. So what I do now, when you put your dust cover down, a dust cover's got there's a little gold side. That's the inside. Obviously the outside's black. Don't get anything on that gold side, because that's the side that goes against your bearing. So keep that clean and away from muck. And then I always use, as I've mentioned this before, I always use grease in a tube, because you don't want to contaminate the grease in that tube. So then I just squeeze it in. All the way around. Slightly overfill it. So when you push the cover back on, it'll force grease in, and the surplus will just pop out the outside. So you get the bearing cover back, put it back over the top. Then with my fingers I just go around, and you'll feel it sort of locate, pop in. Run it around with your fingers. Just give that a bit of a turn. That's right. And then just do the other side. I just need to pop the bearing cover off the other side now. Sorry, the end cap. Same principle. Give it a wriggle and off it comes. Obviously these are Hope hubs. It's a bit different for other makes of hub. Everything I ever do is with Hope, so if you haven't got Hope hubs, then this video may be a little bit pointless. But you get the principle of the idea. So I'm just going to nip this out again. Oh, actually I'll use a pick to get that out. There's a rubber cover. Just nip that out. There we go. And the same thing again. Let's give this cover a bit of a... That looks a bit mucky in there. Okay. And this is a little rubber seal. Just give that a wipe over. That just keeps the muck out. And the same thing here. Just give this axle a bit of a turn. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. Just squeeze some grease in. And same thing again. Make sure the gold goes to the inside. Pop your dust cover on and push it in. Now in this case I may have to just give it a little bit of a push with something. What have I got? End of an Allen key usually goes quite well. The round head. Just go around and just locate it. Oh, that's better. That's a lot better. Nice and smooth. Then you just push your dust cover back on. So not a dust cover, this is like a little seal, little rubber seal. Just protects the bearing from water and stuff. Pop that in. And then end cap. Clean your end cap. So all these sorts of things, instead of degreasing your bike with powerful degreasers, I physically clean things, take them apart and physically clean them and lube them up. Because what tends to happen if you just jet wash your bike and use something like Muck Off or all these other cleaners, it'll be lovely and clean and bright and all the rest of it, but all the bearing, all the grease will be contaminated with degreaser and solvents, and that will work in and destroy your bearings. So what I'm doing is I've got no solvents of any description anywhere near my bike. This is why everything lasts longer. Everyone says, oh, you need to keep your bike clean and tidy and all the rest of it, and your bike will last for years. No, wrong. Yeah, too much cleaning is a bad thing. You can definitely over clean a bike. I'm just going to look at the freer body now. Just give that a bit of a wipe. I don't think there's an awful lot to do to this. It feels as smooth as smooth. I may just clean the around the poles and then re-lube it. There's no muck in there. You can still see the original blue grease from Hope, still there. So all I'll do is check everything. Give all the pores a little wipe. Give them a flick, make sure they work. And I'm going to put a little bit of grease, not much, just a little bit on that flat there. Because you don't want this to be super stuck with grease. Put a little bit, and a little bit around that face just to put that's it really. And then I'm going to put the washer back in, like so, and then we're going to pop that back on. Give it a twist so it clicks in. Now what you've got to do with a Hope, the new Pro 5 hubs are a lot better than this. They've actually got a proper cover. With the Pro 4, what you have to use is a little tool. Hope give you a little tool like this, which pushes that green cover in. It's a bit of a pain, and even Hope have trouble with it, because I've asked them many a time, have you got a special tool? What do you do to push this in? Because sometimes this won't go in. You can try and try and try, and it just will not go in. And all they said to me was, put this on, put the wheel on the floor, and put some weight on it, and it should pop in. And it seems to work, so I'm going to do that. Let me just balance that on the floor and Hope. There it went. Did you hear it? It just popped in. That's it. It's in. If you don't use that tool, what tends to happen is that green thing will go off, slide off slightly, and you could end up splitting it. In the past, I've hit it with a hammer to get this in, and it split the green washer. You can get spares. They're not expensive. Our shop sells. I've been through loads in the past, but thankfully that one popped straight in. But that's the way you do it. Then the other important thing, if you run XD free hubs, you probably know this already, but if you're new to XD free hubs, you must grease them before you put the cassette on. So you must smear some grease on the free hub itself, the body of it. Put quite a decent amount on, and you put it on there, and then I tend to put it on where the splines are at the back. Otherwise, I'm not sure if they still do it, but SRAM, the free hub, the cassette can creak. And it also can jam. It can get stuck on there. So this just slides on now, but I always put a bit of grease on there, and then it just means it'll come off easier. Locate that on, and it just screws on. Yeah, it's a much better system than, as much as I love Shimano, their free hubs. Their cassettes are a pain, especially the Hyperglide ones. There's so many little bits you've got to worry about and line up, whereas this, just look how easy that was. And SRAM's pretty much the same. It comes in one piece. Then all you do once you got that on is pop your end cap back in, and that's that wheel done. Ready to rock and roll for another few hundred miles or a few thousand miles. So I'm going to do exactly the same to the front. You don't really need to see that, but basically the same thing. Covers off the bearings, and then re-lube, and then put it back together. So that's both wheels done now. That took me 15 minutes to do both wheels. So that means your bearings will just last and last and last. I don't need to do the bottom bracket because I did that the other day. Basically exactly the same, cranks out. When I had that creak on my bike, I took the bottom bracket out and I just made sure everything was fine. So that's been done. But I do exactly the same thing. Just take the covers off. And you know, when I say all my bearings last for ages, that's why. And I just use this Teflon. This is TF2 from Well-Tight. It's red. Just works. I've used this for a long time now. I've had no issues with it. So that's that. Now I will check the brake pads. So yeah, fine. Front brake pads are like new. And the rears are fine as well. That's good. Are they? Yeah, they are. I put sintered pads in so they last a lot longer. So they're fine. If you don't know what a sintered brake pad is, it's got more it's there specifically for wet weather really. So they tend to have metal in the brake pad compound, whereas the summer ones are what they call organic, so they don't have so much metal. In the summer, if you run a sintered pad, it tends to really scream once it gets to a certain temperature, so they can really squeal. But they're sort of important in the winter. I put standard pads in the Hope brakes when I went bikepacking before, when the weather got bad, and it didn't last long at all. So it's a good thing to do. It just means your pads will last a lot longer and your brakes will work better. Another little thing to remember is your axles. I've mentioned this before. Keep your axles lubricated, bit of grease. Just a smear, you don't need much. You just need a little bit, and just smear it with your fingers up and down just to keep it from seizing. Because sometimes if you don't take your wheels out that often, where the bearing sits, because there'll be two rings where the bearing sits on the axle, because there's a bearing in the hub and it will sit on the axle, and you'll see two marks, and they can corrode together, they can stick together. So sometimes if you haven't taken the axle out for a long time, you can't get it out. You have to hit it out, and there's all kinds of palaver. Yeah, you'll just see a very, very slight ring, if you can see that, where the bearing sits on that axle. So I just, every so often, just give them a bit of a wipe over with some grease, and it just avoids them sticking. Simple little thing to do. Just only makes them get in and out a bit easier. So that's it. Wheel bearing's done. It's quite happily, I know now that the wheel bearings are going to be fine for another few rides. That's for sure. Nice peace of mind. There's nothing wrong anywhere. Free-up bearings, free-up pulls are okay, so you're not going to have anything breaking. You've checked all that while you're doing it. So I always try to put my tools away. Keep your bench tidy. It's just so much. It's just nice to have everything in one place, and you get to know where it is. It's not difficult. Can't stand. I don't know how people work on a bench that's just covered in crap. I know mine's got a lot of stuff on it, but I'm going to put it all away as I go now, and the rest of it is just in a place where it always is. If you know what I mean. Don't need that. So I need to just check my lights are charged. I think I charged them the other day, can't remember. Let's have a look. I think I'll just put them on charge again, because I'm going to be riding in the dark. So I'll get my start to get my kit together now that I'm going to take. Now I was going to do a review, or I'll do it anyway. Right. Lights. Now, I've had bike lights for years. I know everyone's got bike lights. I know there's some really, really, really good bike brands out there, bike lights, but a lot of them have a big flaw, and that is as soon as you go on the road, you dazzle the traffic. Now, this happens a lot. There's not many lights that have got a cut-off beam. One that has, and I love this light, there's a few more popping around now. It's called Raveman. It's got 2 buttons, and on the front you've got 2 lenses. Now this one here is a dipped lens. It's got a cut-off, so it's got a wide spread of light, so you can see where you're going off-road. So I'm talking off-road now, so you can see exactly where you're going off-road and on the road, but it doesn't dazzle riders coming the other way, people and cars. And then when you want to really, and there's nothing around and you want to go a bit faster, you can turn this other light on, which will give you a main beam, which is a much more powerful beam, which in this case is about 1200 lumens. But this, so it's got different settings, so when you turn it on, the initial, he says, I've got it set on just the one light. Hang on, let's just turn it down. It's got settings to go. So on here you'll see it's got burn time. It'll tell you how much burn time you've got. And I think if on full charge, it's got 9 hours now. So this, I can ride on this beam, this light, and this is a cut-off beam. It's bright enough to ride off-road at a steady pace, see where you're going, and it'll last 9 hours. Actually, it says 23 hours now. Sorry, I've pressed it on the lowest setting. 23 hours that'll do, so it'll do a day on that setting. It's also a battery, so it's got on the back it's got a port, so you can recharge things like computers, other lights, your GPS, your phone, whatever. So a really, really good, sort of understated light. They really are good. Raveman, check them out. This is the 1200. They do lots and lots of different powers, but I found this one to be the best. Obviously, it's got a bit of a slightly bigger battery. The burn time on low is amazing. I don't really use the double very often unless I'm going off-road and I want to go a bit faster, then I'll put on the double. And you just press the big button there, will turn on both lenses or off again. And then the small button just adjusts the power when you've got either selection. You can have the 2 on at the same time and adjust the power. So yeah, great light. Turn it on and off, you just hold it down. It turns it off. It's got a sturdy clip that just clips onto your bars, and yeah, really worth having. And you can see the lens. If you can see the shape of the lens, there's a cut off. This one's sort of got a moulding on it which cuts the lens, so you do not dazzle traffic. It's really important. Somebody came up to me the other day towards me with the big exposure light, the super duper exposure, which everyone raves about. God, I couldn't see who it was. I was just blinded because there's no cutoff. Great light, but very limited as to what you can do with it. And then rear light is a no-brainer. You just get the exposure. I buy the Trace, the cheapest one. It's got no fancy features. It's got no brake light system. They try to make things overly complicated. Exposure. I think they just get carried away with the stuff that it'll do. I think the new one's even got AI in it. I don't know. But this one is the bog standard one, on and off. I got two of these. These go for days. It's got a lens. The setting I use is, hang on, you have to do, that's it, turn it on. I tend to use that. It's a flash. It's a constant and a flash. The flash bit is really, really bright, but because the other bit is quite dim, you still see it. I won't put it on the things because it'll blind you. But yeah, it's really, really good. I put this on I've got two of these on the back of the bike, and I'll run one at a time. So I've always got a spare, but I just hold it to turn it off. So always make sure I've got those with me. It's tiny, doesn't weigh anything. I've got a little modified clip on the back of my pannier. I've got a piece of grip because these are made to go on the back of a seat post. So all I've done is I've made something that's the shape of a seat post, and then this bracket just sits on it. Right, that's that. I just put these back on chars. I'm just going to show you what I do each time I go out on my bike when it comes to my chain. Now I use squirt lube, as I've mentioned before, and all I do is on a dry chain I lubricate it enough to get a band of once round, and then keep on spinning it. So basically what you want it to do is get into the rollers. And just keep on spinning it. I tend to do this, I'll be honest with you, when I'm going out. So then when you go out, you automatically roll it into the rollers. Now you'll notice it's pretty much gone. You can't see anything. There's a little bit on the outside of the links. Now in the winter, I may put a little bit more on, and then when I do, I run it through my fingers like so, and that just puts a little bit on the outside plates. Doesn't need much, just a little bit. But my chain's, there's no oil on my chain. It's clean, it's dry. All I've done is wash it with water when I came in the other day, and just gave it a bit of a swill. And all the important parts of that chain are now lubricated. You don't need to put oil on it in the winter. I've noticed somebody the other day saying, oh, squirt's no good for the winter. Well, this has just done 100 miles, and it's absolutely fine with one application as I went out. I may, when I go out, I tend to do, I've just done this for the sake of this video, but I probably, out of habit, will just put a little bit more on when I go out on the ride. But I tend to put one lot, once round, spin it as I go out, and then that's what I do. And it works for me. So I thought I'd just touch on, as I mentioned, the stuff that I'm going to be taking on a night out. So for one night out, I tend to, as I've mentioned before, I carry my tent in a front dry bag, which is strapped to the handlebars. That's got my whole tent in it and poles. I've got some extra pegs, which I sometimes take, depending on the weather, but there's enough pegs probably in there. These are just extra ones, but I probably won't take those. I also carry now a sponge. This is just to wipe condensation from inside the tent and outside it, really, just to get rid of the worst of it before you pack it away. Handy little thing to take. And then inside the tent, I always take, in the winter, I'll take this most times now, is a sleeping bag liner. Now in the summer, you can almost get away with just this, because it is quite warm. It's a Sea to Summit Reactor Extreme Thermalite regular liner. This is really handy if you are going to get into your tent or whatever you're going to get into, and you haven't changed, you don't want to change, you're just going to get in there and get warm and get this will stop your sleeping bag from getting dirty, and you can wash this. So it just means you don't contaminate your sleeping bag with whatever. I also have a Nemo Tensor insulated sleeping mat, which I always take with me, and I take a Sea to Summit pillow which has got a fleecy cover over it, which is really nice. Sleep really well with that. Obviously, the other thing I take is a sleeping bag. Which I haven't actually packed away yet. It's best to keep, when you pack a sleeping bag or when you store it, keep it loose like this so it's aerated. And this is a Nemo Riff 30F to one, basically 30 Fahrenheit or -1 men's long sleeping bag. This will probably do me. It only goes down to -1, but it'll probably be warm enough because I'm going to take a puffer jacket with me as well. And obviously I've also got the liner, so it all helps keep you warmer. Once it gets really cold, I have got a super duper warm sleeping bag, but this will probably do me for one night. So that is my tent and sleeping equipment. The other things I take in the bike are food, obviously. Now I use fire pot meals. I've got quite an array of them here. I'll take a couple of fire pot meals, one for the evening. I might carry an extra one, so if I'm out all day, I could probably have one of these in midday, if a push. And I have got something else. I'll just go and grab it. Hang on, bear with me a sec. Yeah, the other thing I take is I've bought myself one of these little flasks, and it's got its own little spoon. Now, what I've done with these is if I'm going to go on just a one night, you can put your hydrated meal in this, pour the hot water in, and you've got it ready to eat when you get to camp. So you haven't got to boil or any water because this will stay. This is a little thermos. It will stay hot all day. So when you come to eat it in the evening, you've already got a meal. The other alternative, obviously, if you're going to use just free-dried meals for your food, is you can have this midday and then just do your normal cook up in the evening. The reason I use these is they tend to work out cheaper and they are far more healthy. I'm a bit of a, as you know, I'm on a bit of a thing about what you eat, and everything in here is a real food. Every ingredient is real food. There's no artificial anything in here, which is quite different to a lot of these things. If you read the ingredients on the back, you'll find all kinds of various starches and ingredients that you don't really want to be eating. So this is beef stew and pearl barley. It is really nice. It is beef stew and it's got beef in it. And there's chili con carne with rice. In the morning I have baked apple porridge, which is really nice. Same again, it's just porridge with apples. So yeah, I tend to buy these now. You can get a really good deal on these in Go Outdoors. If you are a member of Go Outdoors, you get a discount and they'll do, I think it's 2 for 1. So it works out really cheap. A lot of people will say, oh, these are too expensive to buy, but it works out about just about £5.50 a meal. Well, if you go to a pub or you go to a coffee and a sandwich or something, it'll cost you more than that. So these work out pretty cheap. And they're easy. And there's no washing up, because there's your cooker, there's your pot, I mean. There's no washing up to do. It's just all you do with your cooker is you boil water. So you keep everything clean. There's nothing to wash up. Nice and simple, which is what I love. I also take myself a little cup. This is a little stainless steel cup because I like a cup of tea, which I will be doing. I forgot to take it last time I was out, so I'll be taking that, and then I'll just take some tea bags with me. I might try some powdered milk, otherwise it'll just be black. And then I have a Jetboil Stash as my cooker, and I take a little lighter with it just to make sure it lights. That does all my cooking. So that's hot and cold meals. Water, I now use like a sauce. This is a squashable, expandable water container. Now I'll put this in the bottom of the bag, bottom of my frame bag. So this is quite heavy. So in here, I think it's 2 litres. Yes, 2 litres. So that's 2 litres of water in there. That's enough to cook and do all your stuff at camp, and a bit more. So I put that, like I say, in my frame bag. So that'll go in there. So that goes in there like that. and that's a bit more flexible, so obviously it'll shrink as you use the water. Now you could have that empty, just sat in there, and then when you get near your camp you can fill it up, and then you've got a means of storing your water. If you know you're going to go to camp and there's going to be a tap around somewhere, you can just go and fill it up at camp, and then that's something you've got to store your water in. Probably that would work in the winter. In the summer you're probably going to want that water anyway, so you'll need it to top up your bags, because I just take 2 bottles in the top here for my drinking. That keeps me hydrated for most rides that I do. The other thing I always carry is a couple of dry bags. This is handy when you take your tent down in the morning and the outer is wet. It's quite a good idea to stuff the outer into a dry bag, and that keeps it away from your inner part of the tent. If you're just doing one night, it's not so important. You can just stuff the whole lot straight back in and then take it out when you get back and dry it. But I tend to take a couple of dry bags anyway, just in case it's raining and you want to keep stuff especially clean, like puffer jackets and things like that. Toiletries, always take a poop scoop, whatever you want to call it, and then I take some Sea to Summit Wilderness wipes for obvious reasons. They biodegrade. I've got a little washing line that I always take with me, not that I actually ever use it. It's in there. I don't think I've ever used it, but one day it'll be handy. Just want to hang something up in the tent. All the normal toiletry stuff. I've got some water purification tablets in here. Got toothbrush, toothpaste. I think that's basically what's in there. What else? Oh, I've got a little mini towel. Half of these things won't get used, but it's I tend to keep all this in here so that I know where it is. But you can guarantee you'll go somewhere and you'll think, oh, I wish I got so and so. So for what it weighs, I just put it in and then I just transfer it around with me wherever I go. Because it weighs virtually nothing, so just stuff that in a corner. These little Osprey bags are quite good. They're not actually, I'm not sure if they are a dry bag, but they're really good for just keeping everything contained. I don't think they are dry bags, but they're great they've got different sizes, so they're good for containing things, keeping them in one place. So tools wise, as I said before, I think I've touched on this. I take a multi-tool, little pump. I'm also starting to carry one of these. Now this is more of a trail tool. If I'm out on the trail, I've just got this, but in the past I've come across places where I really could have done with this. It's a mini saw. If you find the trails blocked, especially in the winter, fallen branches and stuff, it's quite handy just to chop it up. And it's handy for other stuff. You get to camp and you just want to chop up a bit of wood, saw a bit of wood up. It weighs next to nothing. This is a Wilkinson saw one. I think it was about 25 pounds. Yeah, there's a few really crappy ones. I've had some in the past that break first time you use them. Hopefully, I haven't used this yet. Hopefully, this one is it's quite a good one. So yeah, handy to have. Whether you actually need that on a bike packing trip is another matter. But I'm starting to carry this with me just for those occasions when you want to clear a trail. Now, something else I mentioned about Firepot meals. Firepot have brought out these. Now, this goes against what I've been saying to everybody about sugar, because this has got sugar in it. Everything in it is real. There's no rubbish, but it has got Demerara sugar in it because this is a chocolate pudding. Now, I'm not too sure whether I'm going to take these. I don't know. I have tried one once. It was okay. But it's not really my sort of thing. But I've got them anyway. If you're into your puddings, then it might be worth thinking about. It's quite good to keep your calories up at the end of the day. But right, so I'm going to put this all in the bike. I'll probably go through briefly what I've got again as I do that. Yeah. So a bit of an update. I'm doing this video, as I say, to go out on a night out, but I'm going to have to postpone it for about a week. It was going to be tomorrow. I think I've got shingles. Now I'm hoping it's very mild. I think I've mentioned it. Had a band of sort of soreness around my waist. and it's classic shingles symptoms. I have had chickenpox as a child, so it tends, apparently if you have chickenpox, it can come back in later life, and at my age, you're quite prone to it. But also I think doing the 102 miles may be responsible for lowering my immune system and bringing this out. So I may have actually kicked it off by doing that ride the other day. But I've got a real bad patch of soreness here, and I'm praying it doesn't come out in a rash, because when it does, it can take quite a while to go. So I'm basically taking it easy, not doing an awful lot, doing this little video about prepping this bike, and then hopefully I can get over this in the next few days. I'm just doing a lot of walking and general what I would do anyway, but yeah, gonna have to postpone the ride for a little bit. So that's where we are. Okay, so that's it for this one. I will do, when I pack this bike, because I'm not going to pack it now, when I do pack this bike, I'll just do a little refresher. Well, I'll probably mention it when I go out on the ride, actually, what I've got on the bike. But I've given you a rough idea of what I'm going to take, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this gets sorted out. I can get back out on the bike. Okay, take it easy, and I'll see you soon.